The rain fell on the broken streets of Seoul. Captain stood in the shadows of a ruined building and watched the alien patrol pass by. They walked on two legs like humans, but they were taller and stronger. Their scales reflected the dim light from the street lamps they had installed. Everything about them said predator. Everything about them said, we own you now. Counted 6 of them. They carried plasma rifles that could burn through concrete. Their armor could stop any bullet humans had. They moved with the confidence of creatures who had never known fear. 18 months ago, they had come from the stars and taken Earth in 3 weeks. They thought humans were weak. They looked at human bodies and saw soft skin, small teeth, and slow reflexes. They came from a world of massive predators, where only the strongest survived. To them, humans were nothing more than clever prey animals. Touched the radio in his ear. "Team 2, are you in position?" "Ready," came the whispered reply from Nam, who waited 2 blocks away with 5 other resistance fighters. They had been fighting for over a year now. Small attacks, quick strikes. Then they would run and hide. It was all they could do. They had better weapons, better armor, and better technology. Every direct fight ended with humans dying. The patrol moved past position. He let them go. Tonight was not about fighting. Tonight was about information. Across the city, Doctor walked through the research facility where they forced her to work. She wore the gray uniform all human workers had to wear. Around her neck was a collar that would shock her if she went where she was not allowed. Was it before the invasion? She studied alien life forms. Now they made her study human biology for them. They wanted to understand how human bodies worked. They said it was for medical purposes. Knew better. She passed through a corridor and glanced at a lab she was not supposed to enter. Through the window, she saw containers filled with green liquid. Inside those containers floated human brain tissue samples. Her stomach turned. A supervisor approached. His name was impossible for to pronounce. He looked down at her with yellow eyes. "Doctor," he said in rough Korean. They had learned human languages quickly. "Your progress report is late." "I will submit it tonight," said, keeping her eyes down. Looking them in the eye was considered aggressive. "See that you do. The Empire has great plans for your species. We will make you better, more peaceful, more obedient." After he left, felt cold fear in her chest. She had suspected it for weeks. Now she knew. They were developing something to change humans, something to break their will to resist. Far above Earth, in the asteroid belt, Commander Park sat in the command chair of the destroyer Soul's Fire. It was one of 12 human ships that survived the invasion. They hid among the rocks and ice, making small raids on supply ships. Was tired. They were all tired. His crew had been living on recycled air and rationed food for months, but they kept fighting because it was all they could do. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission," said his communications officer. "It is heavily encrypted, from Earth." "Put it through." The message crackled with static but heard it clearly. It was a woman's voice. "This is Dr. Soul Facility. They are creating a bioweapon. It will target human neurochemistry. They plan to deploy it in 30 days. They call it the pacification protocol. After that, humans will not be able to feel anger or rebellion. We will become their perfect slaves." Felt something cold run through him. 30 days. The message continued. "We need Protocol Apex. If it exists, if the stories are true, we need it now. This is our last chance. If anyone can hear this, find General. He knows what to do." The transmission ended. Looked at his crew. They stared back at him with the same question in their eyes. Protocol Apex. They had all heard the rumors. A secret plan from before the invasion. A plan based on something they did not understand about humans. "Find General," ordered. "Search every database we have. If he is alive, I want to know where he is." Back in Seoul, received the same message through the underground network. He sat in the basement of the ruined building and listened to it 3 times. Around him, his resistance cell gathered. There were 15 of them, teachers, students, soldiers, and workers. All of them had lost someone to the. All of them had chosen to fight instead of submit. "What is Protocol Apex?" asked a young woman named Lee. She was 19 and had been hacking computer systems for 6 months. "I do not know," admitted. "But if General created it, it is military. It is something they are not ready for." "We have 30 days," said. 30 days to find this general and stop them from breaking us forever." Stood up, he looked at each of them. "Then we start looking tonight. Search every military database you can access. Talk to the other cells. Someone knows where is hiding." As his team scattered to their tasks, walked to the broken window. Outside, a transport flew overhead, its lights scanning the streets for humans breaking curfew. For 18 months they had been fighting a losing battle. They were stronger and faster. They had better weapons and better technology. By every measure, humanity should have surrendered completely. But humans were still fighting. In every city, in every country, resistance continued. They kept expecting humans to break, to give up, to accept their place as conquered prey. They did not understand that humans were different. They did not understand what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. Touched the knife at his belt. It was a simple weapon against plasma rifles and energy shields, but it was all he had. 30 days, he whispered to the rain. "We will find Protocol Apex, and then we will show them what humanity really is." They found General in the mountains north of Seoul. He was 70 years old and lived in a cave system with 40 other survivors. When his team arrived, the old soldiers guarding the entrance almost shot them. Sat by a small fire, his face lined with age and war, but his eyes were sharp. When explained why they had come, the general smiled for the first time in months. "Protocol Apex," said. "I wondered when someone would ask about it." "What is it?" asked. Stood and walked to a locked metal case. He opened it and pulled out a thick folder. "This is everything they do not know about humanity, everything they did not bother to learn before they invaded." He spread papers on a makeshift table. Lee, who had come with, leaned forward to read them. "They think they won because they are stronger and faster," continued. "They look at human bodies and see weakness, but they are wrong about what makes a predator dangerous." "What do you mean?" asked Nam. Pointed to a diagram. "Humans are endurance predators. Our ancestors did not chase down prey with speed. They tracked animals for days. They followed herds across hundreds of miles. They never stopped until the prey collapsed from exhaustion." Read from one of the papers. "Humans can run longer than almost any animal on Earth. We sweat to cool down, so we never overheat. We can survive on less sleep than most species. Our minds can focus through pain and exhaustion." "They are ambush predators," explained. "They are built for short, brutal fights. Their metabolism burns hot and fast. They need regular rest cycles. Long stress breaks them mentally." Began to understand. "You want us to hunt them." "Not just hunt," said. "I want you to never let them rest. Attack at night. Attack during their meal times. Attack when they think they are safe. Make them afraid to sleep. Make them afraid to stop moving. Use the one advantage we have that they cannot match." Time whispered. "Exactly, time and persistence. We may be weaker in a single fight, but we can fight longer. We can keep coming back. Humans are the species that never gives up." Over the next week, Protocol Apex spread to every resistance cell on Earth. The plan was simple but brutal. No more direct battles. No more trying to match strength. Instead, they would wage a different kind of war. In orbit, had escaped the research facility during a power outage. She brought with her stolen data files. When Park's ship picked her up, she showed him what she had learned. "They have a fatal weakness," explained, showing biological scans on a screen. "Their nervous system cannot handle prolonged stress. After 72 hours without proper rest, they start to break down. Hallucinations, paranoia, motor control problems." studied the data, and humans. Humans can function for 5 to 7 days with minimal sleep before serious problems start. Some people have stayed awake for 11 days and survived. So we can outlast them. Not just outlast, we can break them psychologically. They have never fought an enemy that refuses to stop. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and quick victories. Smiled, it was not a kind smile. Then we will teach them what a long war feels like. The first test of Protocol Apex happened in Seoul. Resistance Cell, now armed with tactics, began their assault on a garrison at exactly midnight. They hit the garrison with homemade explosives, not enough to destroy it, but enough to wake every soldier inside. They rushed out with their weapons ready, but the humans were already gone. At 3 in the morning, teams struck again from a different direction. More explosives, more noise, more chaos. Again, they disappeared before they could respond. At 6 in the morning, another attack. At 9, another. At noon, another. The commander ordered patrols doubled. He ordered his soldiers to search the surrounding buildings. But the humans were ghosts. They appeared, struck, and vanished. By the second day, the soldiers were exhausted. They had not slept. Every time they tried to rest, another attack came. Small arms fire, explosives, sometimes just loud noises to keep them on edge. On the third day, watched through binoculars as they started making mistakes. They fired at shadows. They shouted at each other. Their movements were slower, clumsier. "It is working," said beside him. "Keep the pressure on," ordered. "Do not give them a single moment of peace." Across the planet, other resistance cells followed the same pattern. In New York, London, Beijing, and Mumbai, human fighters launched continuous small attacks, never stopping, never letting the enemy rest. They had more soldiers and better weapons, but they needed sleep, they needed rest, and humans were not giving it to them. Lee had hacked into military communications. She listened to their reports with growing satisfaction. "They are calling humans the sleepless demons," she told. "Their commanders are requesting reinforcements. They say their soldiers are having mental breakdowns." In space, fleet began using the same tactics. They would approach a supply convoy, fire a few shots, then retreat. An hour later, they would appear somewhere else and attack again. The ships would chase them, but humans knew the asteroid belt better. For days, ships played this deadly game. The crews grew exhausted trying to defend against attacks that came at random intervals. Some ships started making navigation errors. Others stopped responding to orders. Back on Earth, something else was happening. Had returned to the Resistance and brought her knowledge of biology with her. She knew Earth's ecosystems in ways that did not. "They do not understand our insects," she explained too. "There has nothing like Earth's mosquitoes or wasps." She developed simple but effective biological warfare. Modified wasp nests placed near bases. Mosquito swarms bred in standing water. The armor protected them from bullets, but not from insects that could crawl inside. The psychological effect was devastating. Soldiers, already exhausted and stressed, now faced an enemy they could not shoot or armor against. After 72 hours of continuous assault, the Seoul garrison broke, watched as soldiers abandoned their posts. Some were found sitting in corners, rocking back and forth. Others had simply walked away into the city, leaving their weapons behind. The garrison commander was found in his office, staring at nothing. When Korean resistance fighters entered, he did not even react. His mind had shattered. News of the victory spread through the resistance networks. If humans could break one garrison, they could break others. Shin, a former news broadcaster, began transmitting messages on hidden radio frequencies. Her words reached humans across the planet. "They thought we were weak because we are small," said into the microphone. "They forgot that our ancestors hunted mammoth across ice and tundra. They forgot that humans walked across continents on foot. They forgot that we are the species that never stops coming. We do not need to be stronger. We just need to never give up. As the second month of Protocol Apex began, the Empire realized they had made a terrible mistake. They had invaded Earth thinking humans were prey. Now the hunters were being hunted. 3 months into Protocol Apex, the war had changed completely. The still had superior weapons and technology, but they were losing, not in battles but in something deeper. They were losing their will to fight. Sora lay on a rooftop in what used to be Tokyo. She had been in the same position for 6 hours, barely moving. Her sniper rifle was pointed at a command center 800 meters away. She had been tracking a particular officer for 3 weeks now. The officer appeared. Sora took a breath, held it, and squeezed the trigger. The modified round punched through the gap in the officer's armor at the neck joint. He fell. That made 47 confirmed kills for Sora. Before they could locate her position, she was already moving. She had 3 other sniper positions prepared. In an hour, she would strike again from a different angle. They put a bounty on her head. They called her the Ghost of Tokyo. But Sora was not the only one. In every occupied city, human snipers were becoming legends. They appeared, killed, and vanished like smoke. They could not adapt. Their military training was built on direct confrontation. They did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to stand and fight. In the ruins of Paris, Minyu Bey coordinated the underground railway. He moved resistance fighters through tunnels and sewers beneath the city. They controlled the streets, but humans owned the spaces below. Minyu had maps that showed every tunnel, every maintenance shaft, every forgotten passage. When patrols tried to search the underground, they found themselves lost in the dark. Sometimes they found traps. Sometimes they simply never came back. "We have 50 fighters coming from," a runner told Minyu. "They need to reach the northern cells." Minyu traced a route on his map. "Take them through the old metro tunnels. Avoid Section 7. They sealed it last week." The underground network spread across the planet. What they did not understand was that human cities were built in layers. Centuries of construction had created a hidden world beneath the surface. Humans used it to move supplies, share information, and plan attacks. Above ground, Shin continued her broadcasts. Her transmissions reached not just humans, but other species across the galaxy. The Galactic Council was watching Earth with growing concern. "We are teaching them what it means to hunt," said into the microphone. "Our ancestors tracked prey for days across the savannah. They never stopped. They never gave up. The animal would run until its heart burst from exhaustion. That is what humans are. We are the species that outlasts everything else." Her words spread through resistance networks. They gave humans hope and purpose. But they did something else too. They terrified the soldiers. Began reporting nightmares. Even when they managed to sleep, they dreamed of being chased by creatures that never stopped coming. Their military psychologists reported an epidemic of anxiety and paranoia. Park's fleet had grown. More human ships had emerged from hiding, emboldened by Protocol Apex's success. They coordinated hit-and-run attacks on supply lines. They tried to respond with overwhelming force. They sent battle groups to hunt down human ships, but understood something they did not. In space, there was nowhere to rest. Crews needed regular downtime. Human crews could function on rotating sleep schedules. "They are chasing us with their fastest cruiser," Sensor Officer reported. "Good," said. "Lead them into the debris field near Saturn. Keep the range at maximum. Do not let them catch us, but do not let them stop chasing us either." For 48 hours, ships stayed just ahead of the cruiser. The enemy ship could not catch them, but their captain was too angry to give up the pursuit. By the time they finally broke off, their crew was exhausted and their captain had been removed from command for erratic behavior. Back on Earth, Doctor had become a weapon designer. She used her knowledge of biology to create new ways to torment the Nothing lethal, but everything deeply unpleasant. She developed spores that caused severe skin irritation. They had sensitive scales, and the spores made them itch constantly. There was no cure except time. She bred modified ants that were attracted to the specific metals in equipment. The ants would swarm over weapons and armor, getting into every crack and gap. "This is brilliant," said, watching ants cover a captured rifle. "It does not kill them, but it makes their lives miserable." "That is the point," said. "We want them stressed and exhausted. We want them to hate being on Earth. We want them to choose to leave rather than keep fighting." The strategy was working. Soldiers began refusing orders to patrol certain areas. Some requested transfers off-planet. The Empire sent mental health specialists, but they could not fix what was broken. They did not understand that they were fighting a kind of war they had never experienced. They came from a world where conflicts were decided quickly. The strong won. The weak died or submitted. There were no long campaigns, no wars of attrition. Earth was teaching them a different reality. Humans were weaker in direct combat, but they could maintain pressure indefinitely. They could function on minimal resources. They could coordinate complex operations with primitive communications. They could stay angry for years. In the occupied city of Mumbai, a garrison commander tried a new approach. He gathered the human population and made an announcement. "We are not your enemies," he said through translators. "We can coexist peacefully. Stop the attacks and we will improve your living conditions." An old woman in the crowd spat at his feet. "You killed when you invaded. There will be no peace until you leave our world." The commander ordered her arrested, but the crowd surged forward. Soldiers raised their weapons, but they hesitated. Months of guerrilla warfare had made them cautious. In that hesitation, the crowd became a riot. Teams used such moments to strike. When we're distracted by civilian unrest, resistance fighters attacked from unexpected angles. They could not fire into crowds without risking mass civilian casualties, which would turn even collaborators against them. By the fourth month, casualties were mounting, not from major battles but from constant attrition. A sniper shot here, an ambush there, accidents caused by exhausted soldiers making mistakes, equipment failures from sabotage, mental breakdowns from stress. The Empire sent reinforcements, but Lee's hacking teams intercepted their communications. She played the recordings for. "They are calling humans sleepless demons," translated. "They say human eyes glow in the dark. They say humans can smell fear. They say humans never sleep and never stop hunting." Good said, "Let them be afraid." Nam organized a raid on a supply depot. His team of 30 fighters hit the depot at 2 in the morning, stole food and medical supplies, and disappeared. The response team arrived to find their guards unconscious and the depot stripped clean. What demoralized the most was a message spray-painted on the wall. "We will never stop. We will never surrender. We are human." In Geneva, a garrison broke after 96 hours of continuous guerrilla assault. The soldiers simply walked out of their barracks and sat down in the street. When human fighters approached, the commander raised his hands. "No more," he said in broken English. "Please, no more, we surrender." It was the first official surrender. News spread across the planet within hours. If one garrison could break, others would follow. Shin broadcast the news to the world. "They are breaking. The mighty empire is breaking against human determination. We are not stronger than them. We are not faster, but we are still here. We are still fighting, and we will never stop." Across Earth, humans heard those words and felt something they had not felt in months: hope. 6 months after Protocol Apex began, Earth was being liberated city by city. The Empire issued a general retreat order. Their soldiers abandoned their positions and fled to their ships. They expected humans to celebrate their departure. Instead, humans followed them. Admiral Now commanded the reformed human fleet. Ships that had been hiding in the outer solar system were joined by captured vessels that Song's engineers had retrofitted with human crews. The fleet was a patchwork of different technologies, but it worked. "They are retreating to their forward colony at Os Prime," said at the War Council. "They think we will stay on Earth and rebuild." "But we are not going to do that," Park said. "It was not a question." "No," confirmed. "We are going to chase them across the stars." Had left Earth's surface to join the fleet. He stood in the meeting with his resistance fighters. They had spent 6 months learning to hunt on the ground. Now they would learn to hunt them in space. "The Galactic Council will object," said Park, a former teacher who now coordinated civilian support networks. "They will say we are being too aggressive." "Let them object," said coldly. "They invaded our world. They killed 400 million humans. They wanted to make us slaves. Now we will show the galaxy what happens when you attack Earth." The human fleet departed Earth orbit 3 days later, 57 ships of various sizes and capabilities. They followed the across space like wolves following wounded prey. The first engagement happened near the asteroid mining station that had established in Earth's solar system. A supply convoy tried to evacuate equipment and personnel. A tactical group intercepted them. They had more firepower, but they were exhausted and demoralized. When human ships began their assault, using the same hit-and-run tactics that had worked on Earth, they did not coordinate properly. Some ships tried to fight, others tried to flee. The result was chaos. Led a boarding team onto one of the transports. His fighters moved through the corridors with brutal efficiency. They had spent months learning ship layouts. They knew where to strike. The crew tried to resist, but they were slow from exhaustion. Human fighters were smaller and could move through the narrow passages more easily. Within an hour, the transport was captured. "Strip it of anything useful," ordered. "Then we move to the next target." The pattern repeated across the solar system. Human forces did not try to match strength in direct combat. Instead, they hit weak points, disrupted supply lines, and gave the enemy no time to recover. They retreated faster, abandoning equipment and supplies in their rush to leave human space. Every day, they expected humans to stop pursuing. Every day, more human ships appeared on their sensors. At Os Prime, they tried to make their stand. It was a fortress world, heavily defended with orbital platforms and ground installations. The High Command ordered their forces to dig in and hold the line. They believed humans would need months to reach them. They believed they would have time to rest and regroup. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived at Os Prime 2 weeks after leaving Earth. They did not arrive all at once. Instead, ships appeared in small groups, launching attacks and then retreating before they could mount a proper defense. Watch the tactical display. Do not let them rest. Hit the eastern orbital platform. When they respond, hit the western ground installation. Keep them moving. Keep them stressed. The bombardment lasted for days, not continuous but timed to prevent rest. Human ships would attack at irregular intervals, sometimes an hour between strikes, sometimes 5 hours, sometimes 12. They never knew when the next attack would come. Had joined the fleet as well. She had been working on biological weapons specifically designed for space combat. Nothing lethal, but deeply disruptive. "We can disperse these spores into their ventilation systems," she explained too. "They will cause respiratory irritation. Not deadly, but very uncomfortable. They will spend more time coughing than fighting." "Do it," ordered. Small human ships, too fast for them to catch, released clouds of spores near the orbital platforms. The filtration systems could not stop particles that small. Within hours, their crews were suffering from constant coughing and breathing difficulties. Led ground assault teams to Os Prime's surface. They did not try to capture the installations. Instead, they used the same guerrilla tactics that had worked on Earth. Strike and fade, hit and run, never stop moving. The expected human soldiers to need regular rest and resupply. But teams operated on minimal sleep and lived off captured supplies. They moved through the jungle terrain of Os Prime like ghosts, appearing only to attack and then melting back into the wilderness. On the 15th day of the siege, something broke in the defenders. A junior officer on one of the orbital platforms refused orders to respond to a human attack. When his commander tried to force him, the officer shot him. The mutiny spread. Soldiers were exhausted beyond reason. They had not slept properly in weeks. Some were hallucinating. Others had simply given up. Lee, monitoring communications from the fleet, heard the transmissions growing more desperate. Commanders were begging their superiors for relief. They were reporting mass desertions. They were asking permission to surrender. The Empire initially refused to allow surrender, but then more garrisons began breaking. Officers abandoned their posts. Entire units laid down their weapons. The other species in the Galactic Council watched what was happening with horror. They sent messages to Earth, pleading for humans to stop. They said the fighting was too brutal. They said humans were being unnecessarily cruel. Shin responded with a broadcast that went across the galaxy. They invaded our world without provocation. They killed our children. They destroyed our cities. They planned to break our minds and make us slaves. Now they run and we follow. This is not cruelty. This is justice. The Galactic Council tried to intervene, but they had no power to stop human forces. No species wanted to fight humans, not after seeing what they did to the. On the 20th day, the commander at Os Prime broadcast a message on all frequencies. His voice was broken and desperate. We surrender completely. Please make them stop. We beg you, make the humans stop. In the human fleet, the War Council gathered to discuss the surrender offer. Stood with, and the other resistance leaders who had survived the long war. We could refuse, said quietly. We could keep fighting until the Empire is completely destroyed. We have the capacity to do it, added. We know their weaknesses now. We could hunt them to extinction if we chose. Looked at the faces around him. Every person there had lost someone to the. Every person there had earned the right to vengeance. What do we want to be? Asked. Do we want to be the species that commits genocide, even against an enemy that deserves it? The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Park spoke. We fought to survive. We fought to be free. If we become executioners, we lose something important. We lose our humanity. Admiral looked at each council member. Vote, accept the surrender or continue the war. The vote was not unanimous. Some wanted to keep fighting, but the majority chose to accept the surrender. Tell the we accept, said, but the terms will be ours, not theirs. The message went out across the galaxy. Humanity would show mercy to the Empire, but that mercy would come with a price. The galaxy watched and waited to see what humanity would demand. The Emperor arrived at the negotiation station with a broken fleet and a defeated military. He was an old warrior, covered in scars from battles across the galaxy. But when he entered the room where human leaders waited, his eyes showed something new: fear. Sat at the negotiation table alongside Admiral, Doctor, and General. Behind them stood representatives from every resistance cell that had fought for Earth's freedom. The room was crowded with humans who had earned their place through blood and sacrifice. The Emperor looked at them with his yellow eyes. He had expected to see rage. Instead, he saw something colder: calculation. We surrender completely, the Emperor said through a translator. We ask only for mercy for our people. Placed a data tablet on the table. These are our terms. They are not negotiable. The Emperor read through the document. With each line, his scales seemed to pale. Complete demilitarization of the Empire. All warships to be decommissioned under human supervision. Military forces reduced to small planetary defense units only. Reparations to be paid to Earth for 200 years. Resources, technology and labor to rebuild what was destroyed. All war criminals to stand trial before human courts. Officers who ordered massacres would face justice. Full transfer of all technology to human possession. Military secrets, industrial processes, scientific research, everything. The empire to become a protectorate under human oversight. Human observers would monitor worlds to ensure compliance. "This is enslavement," the emperor said quietly. Leaned forward. "No, enslavement is what you planned for us. This is accountability. You wanted to break our minds and make us your servants. Instead, you broke yourselves against our determination." "You could have destroyed us," the emperor said. "Why show mercy at all?" General answered, "Because we are better than you. We choose what we want to be. We could become monsters, but we choose to remain human." The emperor signed the treaty. He had no other choice. His empire was broken, his military shattered, and his people terrified of the humans who had hunted them across the stars. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The empire, which had conquered a dozen worlds, had been defeated by a species they thought was weak prey. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss what had happened. Shin was there as Earth's spokesperson. She stood before the council and spoke clearly. "My people did not want this war. We would have lived peacefully among the stars, but they attacked us. They killed 400 million humans. They destroyed our cities. They planned to enslave us." She paused and looked at each council member. "We showed you what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. Humans are not prey. We are the species that hunted mammoth across frozen continents. We are the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. We are the species that never stops coming." A council member from the Republic spoke. "What you did was brutal. They are broken. You pursued them beyond what was necessary for victory." His expression hardened. "They begged for mercy after trying to destroy us. Where was their mercy when our children burned? Where was their mercy when they planned to chemically lobotomize our entire species? We gave them mercy when we could have given them extinction. Let that be remembered." The council was silent. What could they say? Humans had proven themselves the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because of technology or strength, but because of sheer determination. Back on Earth, reconstruction had begun. Under the terms of the treaty, sent workers and resources to help rebuild. Watched as former enemy soldiers now cleared rubble from Sol's streets under human supervision. One worker approached him cautiously. "Why?" the alien asked. "Why did you not destroy us? We would have destroyed you." Considered the question. "Because that is what separates us. We had the capacity for revenge, but we chose something better. We chose to be the species that gives second chances." "But you will never trust us again," they said. "No," agreed. "Trust must be earned over generations. Your children's children might earn it if they learn from your mistakes." 5 years passed. Earth was rebuilt and stronger than before. Human cities incorporated technology but kept their own character. The dead were remembered in monuments across every continent. Park commanded the new Earth Defense Fleet, which now included advanced ships built with captured technology. No species in the galaxy would underestimate human military capability again. Taught at the new Academy of Xenobiology, her students learned not just about alien life, but about the lessons Earth had learned the hard way. "Never underestimate any species based on first impressions," she told her classes. "Evolution shapes life in ways you cannot predict. What seems weak might have strengths you do not understand." Lee had become the head of Earth's intelligence network. She monitored the galaxy for threats, coordinating with Minu Bay's network of information gatherers. They had learned that survival meant staying vigilant. Sora trained the next generation of resistance fighters, hoping they would never be needed, but knowing that peace required the capacity for war. General had retired, but his Protocol Apex was studied by military academies across Earth. It had proven that technology and strength were not the only paths to victory. Became Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He walked through the halls where species who once ignored humanity now treated him with wary respect. At one council session, a new species applied for membership. They were small, with large eyes and delicate frames. Several council members dismissed them as weak. Spoke up. I recommend we accept their application and treat them as equals. Appearance means nothing. Strength comes in many forms. The council members looked at him and remembered. They voted to accept the new species. After the session, a diplomat approached. Do you think humans will ever forgive the? Watched the crowds moving through the station. Walked among other species now, diminished but not destroyed. Their empire was gone, but their people lived. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, said. We remember what they did. We remember the cost. But we also remember that we chose mercy over revenge. That choice defines us. And if another species threatens Earth, the diplomat asked. His expression became hard. Then we will show them the same thing we showed the. We will show them that humans are not beasts. We are not mindless killers, but we remember how to be when we must. We are the species that gives one chance for peace. We will not give a second. The message was clear. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not through conquest, but through the determination to survive. They had proven that mercy could come from strength, not weakness. They would spend generations working to repay their debt. Other species would spend generations learning to respect humanity. And humans would spend those same generations remembering that they had been pushed to the edge and chosen not to fall into the darkness. Shin made one final broadcast to the galaxy, summing up everything that had happened. We are human. We are small and soft compared to many of you. We are slow and weak by your standards, but we are the species that crossed deserts and climbed mountains because they were there. We are the species that split the atom and walked on our moon. We are the species that never stops coming, never gives up, and never forgets. She paused, and her next words carried across the stars. They learned this the hard way. We hope others will learn from their example. Come to us in peace, and we will be your greatest allies. Come to us with war, and we will be your worst nightmare. But know this, we will always give you the choice. We are not beasts. We are human, and that means something. On Earth, in the rebuilt city of Seoul, stood on a balcony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, they remembered the humans who had hunted them across light years. Somewhere out there, other species looked at Earth and reconsidered their prejudices. Humans had proven what they were, not the strongest, not the fastest, but the species that would never stop fighting for their right to exist. The species that could show mercy even to enemies who had shown them none. Smiled. Humanity had survived its greatest test, and in surviving they had become something new, not conquerors but protectors, not victims but warriors who chose peace when they could have chosen war. The stars waited, and humanity was ready for whatever came next.